Hi, my name is Prasenjit Sarkar, and I am a Senior Principal Product Manager for the OCI in the Cloud Native Enablement Group. Today I'm going to talk about Oracle Cloud Shell. Well, this is a safe harbor statement. Okay, by the end of this objective, you should be able to have a kind of a general idea about what is Cloud Shell. You should be able to describe the use cases of Cloud Shell and should be able to start developing your solutions using the Cloud Shell. So now let's look at what is Cloud Shell. So Oracle Cloud Shell, it is an instant access to OCI CLI. It is an up-to-date Linux environment in the browser, and you can follow the OCI labs. It is a completely a free service. You can follow the OCI tutorials, and you can have an instant CLI access. So what does it actually mean? It means that you are going to get a kind of a Linux VM in here, and on this you can have OCI CLI and bunch of other tools which is going to be automatically built, and you don't need to carry any other authentication tokens or authentication files to do your authentication against the OCI API, right? It is a completely a free service, so there is a limit which I'm going to talk about in next couple of slides. But it is a free service, so you're going to get a Linux VM which is going to be attached and as storage, but then again that is also free, right? So you can follow the OCI lab. So we have a couple of labs that you can see, and it is an up-to-date Linux environment in the browser. So when I say up-to-date Linux environment, that means we have a change window where we work internally to see when and how we need to change and update the Linux environment and give you a new binaries if that is something which is available, right? So why do you need a Cloud Shell? Well, it improves the OCI developer experience, of course, right? So it does have bunch of tools, which is like you have Git, you have Maven, you have Python. So you can basically use these tools to start coding, right? And from there, you just need to use a built-in user authentication and send the authenticated calls to the OCI API, right? So for example, you have seen already that instance principles is one of them, and you can use instance principles only when you run the command or the code within the OCI environment itself, right? But in here, you don't even need to create all the policies to create the instance principles. It is already built in, right? So this is a ODO user which is built in, and this is going to get those commands authenticated against the OCI CLI. Okay. So you can run the enablement for the labs and tutorials and or whatever without installing a single binaries into your own local environment. It's completely a browser-based environment, right? So let's look at the couple of features. Okay. So when you log in right now, you'll be able to see in here the Cloud Shell icon, and you can click on that, and it's going to create the environment in here. So on the bottom part of your browser, and from here you can either expand that, you can reset that, and bunch of other stuff like here there's a setting, so you can change the background, the font and the size of it, and various other stuff, right? So if you want to reset the whole environment, let's say you have broken something, you have deleted something, and you want to get it back, a new environment, you can do it from here, right? So you can get a new environment completely spinned up for you with the same data, because the data which you have written in here, it's completely separated from this VM itself, right? So you can start using the pre-authenticated OCI CLI, which is in here, right? You can get an ephemeral 5 GB storage, which is going to persist any change, right? So doesn't really matter whether you're going to close this session in here or you restart and do whatever. your entire data. Say for an example, you did, let's say, git clone to https colon blah blah blah. So if you run that and then you clone a repository in here, that directory, that code is going to be persist. Doesn't matter whether you do whether you are resetting it or you are signing out of your CLI and things like that. So a persistent frame of the console which stays active and as you navigate through the different page. So if you click on in here, if you click on in here, if you click on in here, it doesn't really matter. This guy is going to be persist, right? So you can minimize that, as I said, and you can navigate through the various different menus. But other than that, if you just click on these guys and try to create resources, manage the resources, or delete the resources, this guy in here is going to stay active. Okay. All right. So let's now look at how the Cloud Shell works. Well, it is, as I said, it is a very small virtual machine running a bash shell through your console, right? And it comes with a pre-authenticated OCI CLI, right? Well, I'm going to talk about that, how exactly it is going to do that authentication. But yeah, it is a pre-authenticated OCI CLI, right? So you don't need to install and upgrade your OCI CLI. It is already there. The binary is there, and using your user, which you have authenticated when you sign up to the OCI console, it is already there. Okay. It doesn't require any other setup or prerequisite other than a simple IAM policy granting the access to the Cloud Shell, which I'm going to show you what exactly is that policy looks like, right? So this includes a VM provision for you that hosts your shell, and it's a Linux OS which is going to be actively used in the Cloud Shell. Okay. So as I said, it comes with the 5 GB storage for your home directory. So /home/user _ and that is going to be the format of that, and that stays active. Okay. So it is meant for interactive use and will disconnect after 20 minutes of inactivity. So after 20 minutes, it's going to be disconnected, and you're gonna get and you're gonna get a kind of a warning before the disconnection as well, right? And there is an option to reconnect or exit. So you're gonna have two buttons there when you do a reconnect. One is called exit, or you can do a reconnect. Right. So there'll be two buttons, right? Okay. So this is how it works. So let's look at what are the developer tools that we're going to get by default. So as I said, when you actually, go inside the shell, there are a couple of tools which is already installed, but at the same time, as a user, you do not have the capability to install any binaries within the shell. But if you want to use a static binary, let's say you want to use kubectl, my bad. Yeah. So if you want to use, kubectl or any other tools like Scaffold and things like that to do a continuous integration and continuous delivery. If you want to do a continuous integration and continuous delivery of your code within the shell, you should be able to do that as well. So as I said, so look at this tool. So you're going to get Git, FN, Java, Python 2 and 3. You're going to have SQL Plus to connect to your ADB or ADW database, kubectl to manage your OKE cluster. You're going to have a Helm, Docker is inbuilt, Maven, Gradle is inbuilt. You can run Terraform script as well. You can run Ansible code as well. And then we have all the examples. How do you do that in next couple of slides. So these are already there. But if you want to get some binaries and want to run from your user home directory, so for example, from your home, if you want to run it, for example, you want to run scaffold, let's say, and as I said that scaffold can run from your home directory. It is a binary that doesn't need to be installed exactly, but you can just download it and you can run. That should not be a problem, right? You can do that. So these are the tools. Now let's look at what exactly is the IAM policy that you need to make it work. So it's a pretty simple one-liner. So in your compartment, you need to run allow group, the group name, to use the Cloud Shell in the tenancy. And this is the resource name, which is called Cloud Shell. So this is exactly how you need to give permission for the group that needs to have access to the OCI CLI and the other binaries within the Cloud Shell. Okay. Now, obviously, it comes with a couple of limitations. Let's look at that. So the first thing first. So as I said, it comes with the 5 GB storage, which hosts your home directory. But if you do not use for 6 months, it's going to be deleted. And your administrator is going to have a notification in here that the storage will be removed in next 60 days. So 6 months of non-use can take away your home directory. So if you use at least once within the 6 months, which is all fine, right? Again, the OCI CLI execute the commands against the region selected in your console. So if you look at the console in here, so you see on the top of the console, you see a region, right? And when you open up the shell in here, it's going to get authenticated against, send the authenticated calls against the region which is selected in here, right? So you can change that, of course. The two other way to change that. Number one is when you click on region, and then if you select the region first, and then open up the OCI Cloud Shell, that should be okay. If not, you can even close this down and change this, and again open it up to make it work to that particular region. And if that is also not the case, you don't want that to happen, if you are trying to send authenticated calls to a different region, you can change an environment variable called OCI CLI profile, and then you can specify a region which you want to use to send the authenticated calls to, right? And that particular region will be active in your Cloud Shell. So it has a maximum length of 24 hours and the timeout after 20 minutes of inactivity. Each tenancy can have a maximum of 75 Cloud Shell instances in a monthly universal credit. So this is the limit, and for a pay-as-you-go user, 50 active at one time. This is a huge number. Like 50 users are connecting towards the OCI console and then trying to run the OCI Cloud Shell, which means that 50 different sessions will be active, right? Each tenancy is limited to 400 user hours of Cloud Shell usage, or 240 hours of Cloud Shell users for pay-as-you-grow kind of stuff. Now let's look at the use cases of Cloud Shell. Well, the first thing first, OKE or Oracle Kubernetes Engine and Cloud Shell integration. That's the first one, right? Now, there are two ways to access your Cloud Shell and then use that to access your kubectl or access your OKE engine. So number one, so when you log into this console, first thing first, you just click on this little icon here, that is the Cloud Shell. And then when you go to the quick start menu of the OKE cluster, you're going to see this is the commands that you need to run, which is the first thing, which is not required actually. Then you're going to create the directory, and this is a standard step, right? So you create a directory under your home directory called .cube, and then you can run this OCI CLI create cluster config. Basically, it's going to generate a token based cube config, and it is going to be downloaded into your .cube file as a config, right? And then you do a export and that's it. Your kubeconfig is activated now, and you can start running commands against that. And then you can run the kubectl get nodes -o wide, and then you can see that there is your kubectl node is up and running, and other things are there, right? So that's one of the way to do it. The second way to do it, which is within the OKE engine. Right now we do have a feature called the Cloud Shell access. So either you run the local shell access and then a Cloud Shell access. So when you click on this Cloud Shell access, there are basically 2-3 commands which is going to be bypassed. So basically you're creating the directory, and all of that will be done automatically for you. So you just click on that, click on launch Cloud Shell, and then you just run the same command to get the get the token, right? So here you can see that OCI cluster config blah blah blah, and it has merged that, and then you can just run kubectl get nodes, and that's it. So it is as I said, a pre-installed of kubectl command, and a pre-installed version of Helm as well. That is something that you're gonna get, and this is how we have integrated the Cloud Shell with the OKE engine. Okay. So there's a trick, as I said, that Cloud Shell right now does not have any particular ingresses. So when I say ingresses, that means, so this is your VM. So think about that. This is your Linux VM, and this is your internet. So from the internet, if you want to access this guy, you can't do that because the ingress is blocked, right? By default, it is blocked. There's nothing which has been installed in here to make it up and running. So you can't get access to this. So for an example, if you want to access the OKE dashboard, right? The Kubernetes dashboard, you can't do that. You can't run the kubectl proxy to do that by default. But Tmux is a great tool which is going to create multiple sessions, right? So you can run the Tmux, which is by default installed on OCI Cloud Shell, and you can run the Tmux, and then you can create 2 different screen in here, right? And in one screen you can run kubectl proxy accepts host, and this command is going to accept everything on this 127.0.0.1:8001. But as I said, that this VM does not accept any ingresses in here, so this ingress is not available, right? So that means, how do you access this port number 8001 at 127.0.0.1? Well, there is a trick, and the trick is that you can download ngrok, and you can run ngrok on one other screen in here. As you can see on the right hand side, that this is my screen of the ngrok. So you can run the ngrok. It's a free version, and it's an open source again, and there's no restriction as such. So you can run that, and then you can see the HTTPS forwarding. So you're going to see that this HTTPS screen, right? So you pick up this guy, and then you go ahead and use this URL, and then /API, and then the whole URL for the dashboard. You can run that in your mobile browser, and it should be okay to access it. I mean, that's the only way that you can access it right now, right? So as I said, the ingress is not possible. That means if you want to upload some files from your local computer to this Cloud Shell, that's not possible. Well, copy paste is possible. So you can copy the content of any file. So let's say any let's say YAML files, or any .sh files, or .py file, or .go file, or something like that. You should be able to get all of this by doing a copy paste. If not, you can upload this even to a GitHub, and as I said, the Git is already installed, so you can do a Git clone to get those files inside your Cloud Shell and run the code, right? Okay, so the next one is the Cloud Shell to do a CI/CD development on OKE, right? So in this case, what you can do is you can use Tmux. Now Tmux is to create shell in a one single pane, and then divide that either horizontally or even vertically. So you can create multiple panes in that, and then you can run your different commands. So let's say you run here the scaffold. You can run, let's say, cube ctl for to view the pod. You can run the cube ctl and to view the SVC, and in here you can also probably run the VI editor to change the code itself, right? So that whenever it does have a change, you can see the scaffold is going to pick up the change, and then the Docker container will be built up, and then it is going to be pushed to the to your repo, which is your either Docker Hub or your OCIR, which is Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Registry, and then from there it is going to create a new set of pod with the new code, and then on the other one you can see the services once it comes up, and then you can send, let's say, a curl request to see what's going on, or you can run whatever it is designed to see that new change, whether that is effective or not. So in this case, what you can do is run tmux into 4 different panes, divide that, and then you can run scaffold. So you can see in this screen, the left hand side screen, here I'm running scaffold, and then I'm also changing the code in the single pane itself, and then I'm running kubectl pod-w to watch and to see whether the new pods are coming up or not. So you can see this new pod is pending, the container is creating, running, and things like that. So you can check the new pods are getting updated or not. In here you can run the kubectl get svc-w to see to get the IP address of the pod service itself. And in this case I have used a load balancer services to send a call from the Cloud Shell to access my API that I have written in here. Okay, so now I can run curl against my API endpoint, and here I go. I get the response in there. So you can do that as a CI/CD development on OKE. So this is one of the other use case. The next use case is the FN integration, right? So well, FN, the basic part of FN is that you need to have the FN CLI installed, configured, and up and running before you can actually go ahead and create the application, then create the functions, and then integrate all of that. So in this case, the new user onboarding and the browser-based samples and hands-on training is really great using the OCI Cloud Shell. So you can easily create, deploy, and run a function without any additional steps, and that is the key function in here. You don't need to install anything, you don't need to do anything and literally with a minimal configuration you can have the Oracle FN up and running onto your Cloud Shell, right? So the way that it has been integrated is you can see that it has been using the delegation token based auth, and that delegation token based auth is something which is on at etc OCI, and then delegation token delegation underscore token. So you can use that. So it has already a pre-installed Docker CLI, and FN CLI has also been installed. And you can create the FN context with a provider API URL and one for each region. You can set your region's context as default, and use the smart defaults for the compartment, and default that is to the root compartment. So the way it has been integrated right now into the console is that it is exactly the same way that you have seen in the OKE engine, that you can see getting started icon in here when you click on applications and create an application there. So you can click on that getting started, and here you can see that the Cloud Shell setup is there. So you can just click on that and then click on launch Cloud Shell. It is going to create that Cloud Shell in here in this pane, and then from there you can use all of these commands to start working on FN side, right? So this is really great, where you don't need to install any binaries. You don't need to think about carrying your RSA keys to authenticate yourself against the endpoint, right? So that's all been done for you. Okay. Customizing the Oracle Cloud Shell CLI configuration, as I said, so there are a couple of environment variables that you can use. So number one environment variable, you can see the OCI CLI auth, then OCI auth, OCI config file. So this is your config file, etc OCI config, OCI CLI config file. Is here, and then the OCI CLI profile. So this is something that we have already seen it in our other slide, that you can use this region to set, and then you can run the authenticated calls to that particular region, right? So you can run, let's say, Ashburn, or Phoenix, or say London, and let's say Frankfurt, and things like that, right? So you can do that. And if you don't want to rely on the Cloud Shell's Cloud OCI CLI config file, then you can create an RC file, and then you can use that to point to your new setup. So you can create an OCI RC file, and then to the path of the file, and then you can run OCI setup. And this command is going to take this file from this path, and then set the variable and the configuration for yourself, right? So this is something that you can also do it, and this is a good amount of customization that you can do. If you don't like the way the Cloud Shell has been configured for yourself, you can change that, right? So so again, the continuation part of it is that in the config file, which is the etc OCI config, you can set up a region name in your active profile. So there is no default profile in the OCI CLI. So you can set a default compartment in your OCI RC file if you want to use it, and you can specify under your appropriate region profile, which is the region profile is, let's say, US Ashburn 1. You can again you can change it to Phoenix, or let's say Frankfurt, or let's say London, and other regions. You can do that, and then you can provide a compartment ID. So the default compartment is going to be picked up based on the region that you're going to send the calls to, and then the RC file can leave at the default location, which is .oci, and then OCI CLI RC. That's the file. Okay. All right. So a couple of FAQs that I wanted to mention. So we have already discussed about that. So the first thing first, that can I connect to instances in my tenancy from Cloud Shell? Yes, you can, but for this you need to use the public IP for it. So the public IP is, so let's say when you create an instance, you get the public IP. So here is your instance, and your public IP is here, and then you have assigned the public IP. So from the Cloud Shell, you can access it if you have an SSH key. So the SSH-I, and then the key path, and then let's say OPC at the rate of your IP of that. You can run this, but then again you need to use the public IP endpoint, right? Can I install my own binaries in Cloud Shell? Well, you cannot, because you do not have a super user privilege, but as I said, you can install it onto your home directory and access them in your path. So you can download that, and you can put it into your path, and then you can do it. So for an example, if you want to download Scaffold, you can download Scaffold into your home directory, home path. So let's say your home path is /home / your username underscore, and that's your home directory. So you can download the Scaffold in here, and to access Scaffold, right, what you can do is you can export the variable of path. So, my bad. You can do the path equals to $path and : your home directory, something like that, right? So you can do that. So in that way, you can access your own binaries using the Cloud Shell, and get those binaries up and running. So the next one is, does my user have super user or sudo privileges? Of course, you do not have. So you can use your own path variable if you want to run something, and if you want to install any binaries and go from there, right? Okay, so yeah, we do have a couple of services and offerings. So Oracle Cloud Always Free tier, this is really always free. So you're gonna get 2 VMs, one load balancer, and block storage, and object storage and things like that. So you can try a lot of things in there. As a developer, you can create a blog, or you can run your own development environment up there. The OCI training and certification link in here. You can try the hands-on labs in here, and of course all the learning videos that has been uploaded to this URL, and you should be able to check that out from there. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.